I always felt like there was going to be a price to pay further down the line for interrupting my physiology in that manner, even with an over the counter substance such as. I want to review a nice article that Alex Hutchinson wrote in the New York Times titled Five Supplements Worth Trying, as we sort out all the bombardment of messaging that we need to take this or that supplement to perform well, recover faster, and live a long, healthy life. I'm inspired to do this show because I've been taking supplements for so long and trying this and trying that, and had relationships when I was a professional triathlete with companies plying me with whatever supplement I wanted or whatever they recommended. And after so many years, I'm really getting sick of looking at all the bottles on my shelf and all the stuff I've tried and taken, and then I stop taking it and I forget about it, or the product expires, or the cost starts to give you a second guessing attitude. Like, what am I doing here? Is this really helping? I've had a few bouts in recent years, like 3 separate ones, where I took my usual concoction of pills. At a lot of times, I'm up to probably taking 20 pills in a day of different things that have been recommended and instructed to try. And on 3 separate occasions, apparently I didn't consume enough calories while chugging down my big concoction of pills, and I had bouts of significant to extreme nausea lasting for a few hours. The worst one was about 4 hours of constantly trying to burp out the stuff I'd just swallowed and feeling terrible and having to lie down in the hotel room while we were on vacation. And my wife, who doesn't take hardly anything, she takes 1 probiotic every night, and whatever her ritual is, she's like, "What's going on? Are you feeling better yet?" And I'm like, "No, I feel terrible. I'm nauseous. I can't go on our hike." And I thought, how ridiculous that Mr. Extreme Health guy here, who's been obsessed with supplements and performance edges and all these things for so many years, and here I am lying, moaning and groaning in some hotel room due to the supplements that I've consumed. Of course, I'm going to blame the lack of calories in the stomach to absorb and assimilate whatever was problematic, then caused that bout of nausea. In fact, that's actually probably a sign that whatever I was taking actually had high potency, rather than a lot of the crap that we see in the supplement world, the cheap stuff that you can go buy a giant bottle of pills at the big box store, multivitamin for $9.99 for 280 horse pills. It's so coated and has so many fillers and additives that the potency is very questionable. The benefits are certainly not going to be very validated, and in fact could be counterproductive to take these heavily processed, cheap sources of vitamin and nutrient supplements. So I'm taking the good stuff, so good that it caused me to succumb to nausea on a few separate occasions. But I had that awakening after that episode. It was the hotel room in St. George, Utah. Yep, can remember it like it was yesterday. I said, what am I doing? Why am I spending all this money, time, and energy thinking that I need to take this stuff or I'm not going to recover well? My diet is totally dialed and locked in. I don't think I have a nutritional deficiency risk from my eating habits. So I really started to back off from that point, probably a couple of years ago now. And I'd tell myself, you know what, when I finish this bottle, I'm not going to restock it from this and that company and my various sources where I'm going to purchase these supplements. So I've been committed to that. And of course, sticking with the centerpieces, which for me are grass-fed whey protein isolate as a boost to the diet. Even Alex says later in his article that there's a fine line here. He quotes someone saying there's a fine line between what's a supplement and what's a boost or something to your diet that's in food form. And in fact, the BRAD Superfuel and BRAD whey isolate is categorized as a food product rather than a supplement because it is so pure and has so few added ingredients. So we actually, in our production facility, adhere to a higher inspection standard than the supplement world, which, as you might have heard, has very minimal FDA regulation. You can put whatever you want on the bottle, and there's not a lot of people looking around scrutinizing and testing. In fact, you can Google, we'll put some links in the show notes. The creatine gummy scandal is a good term to Google, and a variety of best-selling brands of creatine gummies were tested in 2024, I believe, and it was discovered that several leading brands had zero creatine in their gummy product, which usually we're saying that a dose of 5 grams is what you're getting from typically 5 gummies or whatever the bag is showing. But many leading brands selling tens of thousands of bags or bottles a month of creatine gummies had zero or just trace amounts of creatine. And only because they got busted did the word get out that this stuff people are paying good money for is just a bit of candy like any other gummy bear that you can buy in the vending machine. That's why we're coming out with a fantastic creatine gummy called B-Rad Real Rad Gummies. I'll tell you much more about that as the release comes near after the publication of this video, but getting a very highly verified and tested source of the real thing. I'll talk about how to discern whether you might be getting ripped off by a lot of these candy products that are made in candy manufacturing facilities versus a product that is integrating a potent supplement like creatine. But these days, my big go-to dietary supplement, performance supplement items are whey protein, creatine, and then an electrolyte beverage, B-Rad Super Drink to be specific, because there is a strong rationale for consuming electrolytes and other performance agents while you're exercising or immediately afterward to help improve hydration versus good old plain water. Still a very good performance supplement, but when you have a proper makeup of electrolytes and performance agents like creatine in my electrolyte and hydration drink, you have a verifiable 28% improvement in hydration and absorption compared to plain water. The body, the stomach, the gastrointestinal system likes to rehydrate the cells more quickly and more efficiently when you're consuming something beyond water, especially, as you probably know, the importance of having a proper sodium balance to the fluid that you consume. If you just guzzle a gallon of water like they used to do on the radio show contests and people died of hyponatremia, you can get yourself in big trouble with when you lose that optimal sodium water electrolyte balance. So that's the rationale for consuming electrolyte hydration drinks, and then plenty of content that I've talked about, rationale for consuming creatine and whey protein. But I'd like to talk about what Alex Hutchinson wrote here. He is probably the world's leading, most respected sports science journalist, especially in the area of endurance sports. He's a former elite endurance runner, author of 2 awesome books. I had him on the podcast to discuss his books. One of them is titled Endure, and the other one is titled The Explorer's Gene. So go back and listen to those shows if you want to hear from a really sharp guy who's doing great work of the highest level of scrutiny and scientific reference. So he wrote an article in the New York Times. We'll link it in the show notes. I just want to cover it for you briefly here in another form besides the written form. So one thing he says at the outset is that research has shown that many products marketed as workout boosters contain dangerous unlabeled additives such as experimental stimulants, steroids, or sky-high doses of caffeine. Yeah, I feel great taking my pre-workout concoction, and who knows what the hell's in it, but if you take a sky-high dose of caffeine, you will probably perceive yourself to have more energy and better workout performance, but those are not things I want to mess with, so I'm trying to narrow my choices for what I use to help support performance and recovery. And of course, this is what the intent of Hutchinson's article is. So he talks about the big proven five. So this is where the research is really strong and the support for integrating these strategically into your training, performance recovery is highly validated. Of course, the first one, caffeine. How about that? Caffeine helps billions of people wake up in the morning. I'm now quoting from the article. It's also a widely used sports supplement. It works by altering how your brain perceives effort, enabling you to push harder for longer. Its benefits are most well established in endurance events, but it's also useful for short sprints and team sports. You can get the effects from a cup of coffee, but if you want to dial in the effect with greater precision, scientists typically recommend 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight an hour before exercise. So someone weighing 150 pounds would be taking 200 to 400 milligrams an hour before exercise. I don't know about you, if you've experimented or know what doses of caffeine are, that's a shit ton of caffeine. A really strong cup of coffee, I believe, has around 100 to 200, right? An espresso or the biggest shots can have 200 milligrams. So Alex says that's 1 to 2 cups of strong coffee. But we know the caffeine content can vary widely in coffee, and that's why if you take a caffeine pill, a supplement like the Vivarin or No-Dose, like the students used to take back in college, you want to dial in that dose and honor the research. The new B-Rad Super Drink is a scientifically advanced electrolyte and hydration beverage that represents the very best in hydration, performance, and recovery. Our delicious strawberry lemon flavor hydrates 28% faster than water and contains potent performance agents like creatine. Creatine is rarely found in energy drinks, but it greatly enhances cellular hydration and muscle power. We also have citrulline, which is great for improved oxygen delivery to muscles, better blood flow, increased endurance, and reduced muscle soreness. Taurine is for reduced oxidative stress, better fat burning, and more efficient muscle contraction. Essential amino acids. They delay fatigue, improve protein synthesis, and speed muscle recovery. You can order directly on bradnutrition.com using the code BRAD20 for a 20% discount, or also find it on Amazon along with all the other B-Rad nutrition products and get your free shipping with Amazon Prime. Try Super Drink today. You're going to love it. Here's my personal view on caffeine. I try to stay away from it in association with exercise. The rationale being, I want to completely feel my level of fatigue and readiness to train without the interference of a central nervous system stimulant. And this goes back all the way to my triathlon days when I completely avoided any form of stimulant such as caffeine because it was so difficult to recover and perceive your level of recovery and monitor your risk and your path to overtraining, that if I woke up feeling groggy and not quite with it, and I was preparing to go for an 87-mile bike ride with a bunch of fast guys, I wanted to be in that state as I commenced the workout, especially throughout the day. I couldn't imagine consuming caffeine on those afternoons where fatigue was catching up to me as I had done 1 or 2 workouts already that day. So I made that decision to be the most clean burning machine I possibly could during that triathlon career. And of course, I've honored that ever since. Also, in the area of nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories such as ibuprofen, Tylenol, those categories where you can knock out that headache or that stiffness in your lower back and go out there and perform better under the influence of an NSAID. I always felt like there was going to be a price to pay further down the line for interrupting my physiology in that manner, even with an over-the-counter substance such as the very, very popular ibuprofens. There's a lot of beat up old time endurance athletes with artificial joints now that can tell you about how they used to pop 8 Advil before they went on their 3-hour run or their 5-hour bike ride to overcome that soreness and stiffness and pain in the joints. I will actually relate that one time in recent years, and I'm talking maybe in the past 10 or 20 years, I've used nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory ibuprofen a handful of times that I can remember, most recently in association with when I was suffering from the global pandemic illness and in bed for 6 days, trying to lower that burning fever because I couldn't sleep. So that qualified for me reaching for the ibuprofen. But I also popped a couple on my recent Cactus to Clouds hike. So that's the toughest endurance event I do every year. I've done it 4 times in 4 years down in Palm Springs. And I was having some pain in my foot from workouts leading up to the Cactus to Clouds. And it was starting to get annoying early in the hike. So I popped a couple ibuprofen and I couldn't believe the miracle result of feeling better right away. So this stuff really works. But yes, what happened in the days after the hike is I had more than expected foot pain and longer recovery time from beating up that foot on the hike. I was going to finish the hike no matter what, especially because you can't turn around on the world famous Skyline Trail Cactus to Clouds hike because you're descending a trail that's too steep and you're going into the heat of the desert. So you have to make it up to the top of the tramway to get your ride back home. So that was my permission to pop a couple ibuprofen, surprised how incredibly quickly and strongly that it worked. But if you get into the habit of slamming caffeine to fight the fatigue of your life and your recovery patterns and your training schedule, or slamming ibuprofen, even worse, to deal with joint discomfort, oh mercy, yes, you're going to pay the price later, and you're going to be hobbling around shuffling like a beat up old endurance athlete that trained too hard, fueled by over-the-counter drugs. No thanks. So caffeine, yeah, I'm kind of a purist there. Of course, as you habituate to caffeine, that 1 or 2 cups of coffee that you drink every day is not giving you that profound performance boost anyway because you've habituated to it. And maybe there is a rationale for when you're striving for peak performance, especially in an endurance event, when your brain is the key factor for how well you're going to persevere, the central governor theory, right? Maybe there's a great rationale for preserving caffeine for those times when you really want to perform. But in normal day-to-day training, no thanks. I want to feel it and recover naturally and properly, and also get up every day and assess my musculoskeletal level of readiness and recovery without the interference of popping NSAIDs as a routine portion of my training. Okay, so there's good research showing that banging 200 to 400 milligrams of caffeine at 150 pounds is going to help you tremendously in an endurance event. Let's go to the next one. Creatine, the most widely used and effective supplement for building muscle. It's derived from amino acids and it works by topping up your stores of phosphocreatine. That is the stored energy, the stored source of ATP energy inside the muscle cell. So creatine helps fuel short bursts of maximal effort, lasting a few seconds at a time. This, of course, also supports performance for longer duration. Now I'm editorializing outside of the brief excerpts of the short article. So Alex says, creatine supplementation might help you squeeze out an extra rep or 2 in the gym or be slightly more powerful, more explosive. And now, of course, the research is exploding that creatine benefits you in so many more ways just than the long perceived boost in muscle power and explosiveness. So we've long been told that the recommended dose is around 5 grams a day for most people. Alex's article says typical daily dose of 3 to 5 grams. Now, I really appreciate the leaders in this field suggesting that higher doses can bring greater results with none of the perceived downsides that we've often been told about. However, as my recent podcast guest Cynthia Monteleone explained, some people might not tolerate as well as others, and if you do experience some of the common side effects of creatine supplementation, namely bloating or digestive distress, you definitely want to rethink your regimen. It's also a good idea to cycle on and off it, per Cynthia, so that you don't bring yourself into these areas where you might have adverse reactions to creatine. But the exciting research showing that creatine is excellent for brain health, helping the brain neurons function better, perform better, recover more quickly from brain stress and using that brain every day. And also very important for the elderly, especially aging athletes, especially females postmenopausal, where they seem to be at higher risk for creatine depletion. It's very difficult to get therapeutic dose from the diet. You need to consume around 2 pounds of red meat to get that 5 grams of creatine in your nice little scoop. So creatine will always be found on any top 5 supplement list for good reason, and hundreds, if not thousands, of research studies validating the effectiveness. Personally, I am consuming probably in the 10 to 15 gram range routinely every single day, up to 20 grams, maybe even 25 grams on the days of my hardest workouts. And then sometimes when I'm traveling and forget to bring my bag on the road, maybe I'm taking 0 for 4 days at a time, and then back to this routine where I'm getting the 3 grams per scoop in my B-Rad Super Fuel every morning, taking 2 or 3 scoops. So there's 9 grams right there, and also adding supplemental scoops from B-Rad creatine to bump up my dosage into the 15 to 20 gram range when I really need it. So great effectiveness there. Now we come to a few really nuanced performance agents that are in the news. So I'll quickly go over these. They might be of more interest to really competitive athletes, especially bicarb, also known as baking soda. Sodium bicarbonate is a base that can neutralize acids, namely acid production in the bloodstream when you're performing at high intensity. So the idea that lactic acid causes muscle fatigue is outdated. Alex has great articles about that linked in this article. It's true that sustained hard efforts make your muscles and bloodstream increasingly acidic, which interferes with muscle contraction. So ingesting baking soda has long been known to counteract these effects. This has been known for decades. I remember people talking about this back when I was a triathlete in the 80s and 90s. However, the side effects are pretty gnarly, namely nausea and unpleasant gastrointestinal symptoms. So athletes looking to supplement with baking soda always did so at their own risk. I heard about a few random occasions of people having huge digestive distress, way back decades ago, trying to take a couple tablespoons of baking soda in their energy drink. But 2 years ago, maybe this is later now, the Swedish company Morten introduced a product that suspends baking soda in a gel that makes it easier to digest. The result is now called bicarb, is widely used by top endurance athletes, and I've heard interviews with numerous Olympic middle distance and long distance runners saying that they think bicarb really works, and it's maybe one of the reasons. I'm not sure I agree about this, but some of the experts are contending that this explosion in performance and world records and more high school dudes running under 4 minutes in the mile and more college dudes running under 4 minutes in the mile is partially attributed to the use of bicarb during a middle distance event, such as a race of around 4 minutes, like a mile, where the acid buildup can really affect performance. The next one on Alex's article is called Beta-alanine. Just as baking soda counteracts rising acidity in the bloodstream, beta-alanine is a naturally occurring amino acid that acts as a buffer within muscle fibers, boosting performance during bouts of intense exercise that last for a few minutes. Unlike baking soda, which works quickly, beta-alanine requires daily supplementation for 10 to 12 weeks to show an effect. Can't say I've tried it, haven't really heard of it, and maybe so. If you're training for the Olympics, you can play around with some of this stuff, or you're looking for that performance edge. I'm mostly focused on my ability to perform and recover and avoid injury in the realms that I compete in sprinting and high jumping. So I don't think I'm too worried about my beta-alanine levels yet. I'd rather just have my Achilles feeling great and rehabbing completely, if you know what I mean. Now, nitrate, another supplement. A series of studies in the late 2000s showed that consuming nitrate lets you burn slightly less energy while running at a given pace for reasons that aren't fully understood. This efficiency boost is particularly valuable in longer endurance events, such as half marathon and marathon. Most common nitrate supplement, beet juice. Now you've heard of nitrate, right? Everyone's touting beet juice as this great endurance booster. You can find these shots of beet juice that are easier to down and contain a standardized dose of 400 milligrams. They can be hard on the stomach, so try them in training before you bust it out on the race. Alex talks about, ending up the article here, And concluding the show, the International Olympic Committee published a list of supplements, approved supplements, back in 2018. So the Olympic athletes have to go by that, and they can't partake in some of the stuff that's not on the list, at risk of testing positive for a supplement that's not allowed, not to mention the performance-enhancing drugs, but they also try to regulate other supplements that are over the counter. In the years since that IOC 2018 list, other supplement fads have come and gone among athletes. One of them is ketones as an extra energy source. And of course, this has become extremely popular these days, with great research supporting the use of supplemental exogenous ketones as an alternative fuel source, particularly during endurance exercise. But I also love using my ketone IQ shots during and after, before, during, and after my sprint workouts, my explosive workouts in the gym or on the running track. So what I like about ketones, besides being an alternate energy source, especially for the brain when you're performing, remember the brain is competing for that precious glucose as its preferred fuel source, but when you down some exogenous ketones in and around performance, you give your brain the fuel it needs to be alert and energized and allow the glucose to be burned by the muscles without experiencing that notable decline in performance when you get a little foggy because you've been burning up a lot of sugar in the gym or during a really intense workout asking for a lot of explosiveness, or a workout that's prolonged in nature, like the Tour de France cyclists are known to slam the ketone IQ during the 4, 5, 7-hour stages to keep alert, as well as have a little top off for the muscle fuel. So I'm a big fan of supplemental ketones, and it's really cool to see that they're now being introduced widely, and companies like Ketone IQ are succeeding and helping athletes. I also like this little known benefit of taking supplemental ketones after the workout, because as we know from the ketogenic diet and all the books, the keto reset diet, being in a ketogenic state has profound anti-inflammatory benefits. That's why the diet was originally formulated for people with drug-resistant seizures. It improves oxygen delivery to the brain and the muscles, and it helps reduce inflammation. So after my workout, I don't need any fuel anymore. I'm just resting, relaxing, heading home. I will consume some supplemental ketones to help me reduce inflammation and recover and get back to homeostasis more quickly. So it's nice that Alex mentioned ketones. We also have collagen as a hugely popular supplement category to help build springier tendons and ligaments. I know Mark Sisson has been a big fan for a long time, and I've been trying to take regularly a supplemental dose of collagen to support, of course, healthy hair, skin, and nails, but especially to help restore and regenerate joints and connective tissue. Some of the research on collagen suggests that it has a heliotropic effect on the body. So if you have some frayed Achilles tendons to deal with, or irritated, chronically inflamed tendinitis in the upper hamstring, or whatever it is, that the collagen will know where it needs to go and where you need it most. Pretty fascinating that I'm consuming a collagen in my smoothie and it's traveling down my leg to help nourish the Achilles tendons and build new, stronger fibers. Okay. He also mentions antioxidant cocktails to accelerate recovery. There's a bit of controversy on whether to consume antioxidants anymore. And the idea is that you want this pro-oxidant effect after training. You want to let things like the flood of free radicals into the bloodstream run their course so that you can recover and come back stronger, responding to the workout stimulus instead of shutting down those oxidative pathways right away with antioxidants. Pretty fascinating. Fortunately, I'm not going to engage in extreme behaviors like slamming 20 fish oil pills as soon as I get back from the gym where my muscles are inflamed and have been working hard. But if you're in that category of being highly devoted to something that's extreme in nature, you might want to look at both sides of the research, especially the emerging research about antioxidants. Finally, Alex concludes the article saying, protein powder is worthy of consideration of being one of the super supplements. According to Jose Antonio, a professor at Nova Southeastern University in Florida, co-founder of the International Society of Sports Nutrition. This is where that quote came about the fine line between what counts as a supplement and what counts as food can be blurry. I'm going to put the BRAD whey protein isolate and BRAD superfuel in the category of food because it is so pure and is rated as a food grade product. So you're basically taking a concentrated dose of protein made as a byproduct of cheese manufacturing. Yeah, so definitely a good place in the diet for making sure that you get adequate amounts of daily protein, which can often be a challenge when you think about the difficulty of preparing high protein foods and grabbing them on the go. I did a whole show on that you can listen to. So I love to have that scoop, or in my case, 2 to 3 scoops every day of BRAD Superfuel to top off my dietary protein requirements and also get that unique boost of creatine when I'm taking my Superfuel. All right. That's Alex's article in the New York Times, 5 supplements worth trying. And we're going to add 6 because he talked about protein at the end. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, comments, email podcast@bradventures.com. And thank you for listening, watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and will hit like and subscribe below. You can visit bradkearns.com for show notes, timestamps, and helpful links. Comment on the video. We read them all. You can also email us, podcast@bradventures.com. I love to connect. And the best way to support this channel is to check out the finest quality performance nutrition supplements in the world at bradnutrition.com or at the BRAD store on Amazon.